The coffin was sinking into the earth, and Rita felt nothing. Around her, black umbrellas bloomed like funeral flowers. The sky hung low and grey, threatening rain that never came. Voices murmured prayers she stopped believing in years ago. Her mother sobbed into a handkerchief. Aunts clutched each other. Cousins wiped their eyes. But Rita stood perfectly still. Not a tear, not a tremble, not even a blink. The pastor's voice droned on about a man of God, a devoted father, a pillar of the community. Each word landed on Rita like stones on a grave she had dug inside herself long ago. She stared at the mahogany casket gleaming in the dull light, at the bouquets of white lilies people said represented purity. She wanted to laugh or scream, but she did neither. Her aunt leaned toward her cousin, voice sharp enough to cut. Look at her, standing there like a statue. No tears, no emotion. What kind of daughter does that? The cousin shook her head slowly. Cold, just cold. Rita heard every word. She was meant to. By the time the first handful of dirt hit the coffin, the whispers had spread to the mourners like wildfire. Heartless, ungrateful, devil child. The same words they had always used for her. She had learned not to flinch. The service ended. People filed past her, their eyes judging, their mouths tight with disapproval. Some avoided looking at her altogether. Others stared openly, as if trying to find proof of the monster they believed lived inside her skin. Her mother approached, eyes red and swollen, and for one fragile moment, Rita thought she might finally say something true. But her mother only whispered, "People are watching, Rita. Try to look sad." Rita turned away. As the cemetery emptied, she stood alone by the grave, the wind pulling at her black dress. The camera would have shown her face then, blank, empty, like someone had erased her from the inside out. But if you looked closely, really closely, you might have seen it. The slight twitch at the corner of her mouth, the way her fingers trembled before she shoved them into her pockets, the rapid blinking, fighting something back. Inside her mind, a little girl was screaming. She was 7 years old again, cowering in a corner, begging him to stop. She was 10, telling her mother what he did when no one was watching, and hearing her mother say she was lying. She was 13, overhearing relatives call her attention-seeking, dramatic, cursed. She was every age she had ever been, trapped in a house where love was a weapon and silence was survival. The memory flashed, his hand raised, her mother turning away, the door locking from the outside, the darkness, the fear, the shame that tasted like metal in her mouth. Rita blinked and she was back at the cemetery. The coffin was covered now, buried, gone, but the past was not. A woman passing by clicked her tongue. Shameful. Didn't even cry for her own father. Some people have no heart. Rita walked to her car without looking back. What kind of daughter doesn't cry for her father? Perhaps the kind who cried so much as a child that she ran out of tears. Perhaps the kind who learned that some graves are dug long before anyone dies.
Rita's story did not begin at that graveside. It began 20 years earlier, in a house that looks perfect from the outside. Her father was a respected man, a businessman, a deacon. People smiled when they saw him. They shook his hand at church. They said what a blessing his family was. Behind closed doors, he was someone else entirely. Rita learned early that his moods were weather, unpredictable and dangerous. A wrong word, a spilled drink, a grade that wasn't perfect, and the storm would come. His voice would drop to that terrifying calm, and she would know what was next. The locked room, the pain, the blood, her innocence, the punishments he called discipline but felt like hate. She remembered being 8 years old, shaking, trying to explain to her mother what happened when she wasn't home. Her mother's face had gone pale, then hard. "Don't you ever say such wicked things about your father. He works hard for this family. You should be grateful, not spreading lies." Rita never forgot those words. They became the walls of her prison. She tried again when she was 11. This time her mother slapped her across the face. "Enough. You are going to destroy this family with your evil tongue. Your father is a good man. You are the problem. You have a demon in you, Rita." That is the only explanation. After that, Rita stopped trying. But the abuse did not stop. The relatives found out somehow. Perhaps a teacher made a call. Perhaps a neighbor saw bruises. But instead of rescue, Rita found another kind of violence, their words. "That girl is disturbed. She makes up stories for attention. Poor man having to deal with such a difficult child. She's cursed, that one, mark my words." Her aunt, the loudest of them all, declared Rita was possessed, a child of the devil. She convinced the others, and soon the entire family treated Rita like a disease, At school, word spread. Children are cruel to what they don't understand. Rita's friends stopped calling. Birthday parties happened without her. She ate lunch alone, a ghost among the living. By the time she was 15, Rita had perfected the art of disappearing while still being seen. She smiled when expected, said the right things, performed the role of dutiful daughter in public. But inside, she was hollow, a shell with nothing living inside it. She learned that pain was her normal, that betrayal was her inheritance, that love was just another word for abandonment. She stopped believing in God, because if God was real, He had abandoned her too. She stopped believing in people, because every person she trusted had chosen comfort over truth. She stopped believing in herself, because everyone told her she was the problem, and after years of hearing it, part of her started to believe it too. The years crawled by like a sentence she was serving for a crime she didn't commit. Her father continued his double life, saint in the streets, monster in the home. Her mother continued her denial. Rita realized later it was easier for her to call her daughter a liar than to admit she had married a predator. Easier to sacrifice her child than to face her own choices. Rita survived by becoming stone. By the time she turned 18 and left for university, she had not cried in 3 years. Her heart had sealed itself shut, a tomb with no key. The day she moved out, her father hugged her in front of relatives, smiled, said he was proud. Rita felt nothing. She was already gone. Some children grow up too fast because childhood was stolen from them. Rita learned to survive, but survival is not the same as living, and the wounds beneath her skin were deeper than anyone could see.
"10 years after leaving home, Rita had built what looked like a successful life. She had a career in accounting, a clean apartment in the city, bills paid on time, plans that she managed to keep alive. From the outside, she had escaped. But trauma does not stay buried. It lives in the body, in the sudden racing of the heart for no reason, in the nightmares that wake you at 3 a.m. gasping, in the inability to let anyone get close. Rita worked late because going home meant being alone with her thoughts. She avoided relationships because trusting someone felt like handing them a loaded weapon. She went through motions, checking boxes, existing but not living. Her apartment was spotless, too spotless. Control was all she had. At work, she was known as efficient, professional, distant. Colleagues respected her work but never invited her to after-work drinks. She was polite but impenetrable, a fortress with no door. The nightmares were getting worse. She would wake up convinced she was still in that house, still hearing footsteps in the hallway, still waiting for the door to open. She would check the locks 3 times before bed, sometimes 4. Mirrors were her enemy. When she looked at herself, she saw what they had called her: devil child, liar, heartless. She avoided churches. The sight of a steeple made her stomach turn. She avoided families. Watching happy parents with their children felt like staring at a language she would never speak. She avoided everything that reminded her she was human, and humans needed things she could not afford to need. Then came the day everything cracked. It was a Thursday, ordinary, forgettable. Her supervisor made a passing comment: "Rita, you need to smile more. You're scaring the new interns." It was a joke, harmless, thoughtless, but Rita felt something inside her chest fracture. She finished her work, walked calmly to her car, drove home in silence. She unlocked her apartment door, set down her bag, removed her shoes, and then she collapsed. Right there on the kitchen floor, knees buckling, a sound tearing from her throat that she did not recognize as her own voice. She sobbed. Deep, ugly sobs that came from a place she had locked away for years. She cried for the little girl who was not believed, for the teenager who was called a liar, for the woman who had survived but forgotten how to live. She cried until she had no tears left, until her throat was raw, until her body shook with exhaustion. When she finally stopped, the apartment was dark. Hours had passed. Rita sat on that cold floor, back against the cabinet, staring at nothing. She was 30 years old, and she realized with terrifying clarity that she was barely alive. She was functioning, but she was not living. She was breathing, but she was not free. Something had to change, or she would disappear completely. There is a difference between surviving and healing. Rita had survived for so long she forgot there was another option. But sometimes breaking is the first step toward becoming whole again. Rita did not plan to go to church that Sunday. She had driven past it 100 times, that small building with the white cross, never stopping. Faith was a wound she had no intention of reopening. But that morning, something pulled her. Maybe it was exhaustion. Maybe it was desperation. Maybe it was the faint hope that somewhere, somehow, there was still something worth believing in. She parked outside but did not go in. Sat in her car for 20 minutes, hands on the steering wheel, arguing with herself. She almost left. Then an older man tapped on her window. He had kind eyes, grey hair, the color that marked him as clergy. The service is starting soon if you would like to come in, or you can sit here. Either way, you are welcome. He walked away before she could respond. Rita sat there another 5 minutes. Then, against every instinct, she got out of the car. The service was small, simple, no judgment in the faces around her. Just people singing, praying, listening. Pastor Eli spoke about storms, about how sometimes God allows us to be broken so we can be rebuilt stronger. Rita barely heard the words. She was too busy fighting the urge to run. After the service, she tried to slip out quickly. "Excuse me, miss, would you like some coffee? We have tea as well." It was the pastor. Up close, he looked about 60 with laugh lines around his eyes, and the gentleness that made Rita uncomfortable because it felt real. "No, thank you. I should go." "Of course, but if you ever need someone to talk to, my door is always open." She nodded, already backing away. But 2 weeks later, she was back. This time she stayed for coffee. Small talk, nothing deep. The third visit, Pastor Eli asked her gently, "Would you like to talk about why you really came?" Rita's first instinct was to lie, to smile and say everything was fine. But she was so tired of lying. "I don't know where to start." "Start anywhere." So she did. At first the words came slowly, carefully. She told him about the funeral, about not crying, about how everyone judged her. Pastor Eli listened without interrupting. Then the dam broke. She told him everything. The abuse, the disbelief, the abandonment, the years of silence, the shame that clung to her like a second skin. She expected him to recoil, to doubt her, to tell her she needed to forgive and forget and honor her father. Instead, he leaned forward, eyes filled with compassion, and said, "I believe you." 3 words, but they shattered something inside Rita that had been locked for 20 years. "I believe you, Rita, and what happened to you was not your fault. You were a child. You deserved protection and you did not receive it. That is not on you. That is on the adults who failed you." Rita could not speak. Tears streamed down her face. "I know people have told you to forgive, and one day you might, but let me be clear. Forgiveness is not pretending it did not happen. It is not excusing abuse. It is not reconciling with someone who hurt you." "Then what is it?" Rita whispered. "Forgiveness is releasing the hold that pain has on your soul. It is choosing freedom over bitterness. It is not for the person who hurt you. It is for you." Rita shook her head. "I don't know if I can." "You don't have to today. Healing is not a race. But Rita, you have carried this alone for so long. You don't have to anymore." For the first time since she was a child, Rita felt something shift. It was small, fragile, but it was there. Hope. Some wounds cannot heal in silence. Rita had spent years believing she was alone, but in that small room with a stranger who chose to believe her, she found the first piece of something she thought was lost forever: her voice.
Three months after that first conversation with Pastor Eli, Rita's phone rang. It was her mother. Rita stared at the screen, her finger hovering over the decline button. They had not spoken since the funeral,
Not really. Just cold, necessary exchanges about estate matters. She almost did not answer. But something Pastor Eli said echoed in her mind. Healing does not mean you owe anyone anything, but it does mean you get to choose peace over bitterness. Rita answered, "Hello?" Her mother's voice was unrecognizable, broken, shaking. "Rita, please, do not hang up." Silence. "I know I have no right to call you. I know what I did not do. I have been seeing a counselor. She helped me understand." Her mother's voice cracked. "I was wrong, Rita. I was so wrong. I chose my comfort over your safety. I called you a liar when you were telling the truth. I abandoned you when you needed me most. I am so sorry. I am so sorry." Rita felt tears coming, but they were different this time. Not the tears of a child begging to be believed. The tears of a woman who had waited her whole life to hear those words. "I do not expect you to forgive me," her mother continued. "I just needed you to know I failed you, and I will carry that for the rest of my life." Rita closed her eyes. "I know you are sorry," she said quietly. I am, Rita. I need time. I understand. But thank you for calling." Her mother exhaled, a sound between a sob and relief. "I love you. I should have said that more. I love you." Rita ended the call. She sat in silence for a long time, feeling the weight of those words settled into places that had been empty for years. 2 weeks later, Rita found herself driving back to the cemetery. It was early morning. The grounds were empty, mist rising from the grass. She parked and walked slowly to her father's grave. The headstone was simple. His name, dates, a verse about rest. Rita stood there, hands in her jacket pockets, staring at the earth that covered him. For years, she had imagined this moment. In some versions, she screamed at the grave. In others, she spat on it. In others still, she said nothing and walked away. But now that she was here, she felt something unexpected. Pity. He had been a broken man who broke others, a hurt person who hurt people. It did not excuse what he did. Nothing ever could. But she saw him clearly now, not as the monster of her childhood, but as a deeply damaged human who had caused irreparable harm. And she realized forgiving him was not about him at all. It was about her. Rita knelt in the damp grass. "I am here," she said softly, "because I am choosing to let go." Her voice trembled, but she kept going. "What you did to me was wrong, unforgivable by any measure. You hurt me in ways that changed who I am. You should have protected me, and instead you harmed me. I will carry those scars forever." The wind moved through the trees. "But I am not going to let you have any more of my life. You took my childhood. You took my peace. You took my ability to trust, but you do not get to take my future." Tears fell freely now. "So I forgive you, not because you deserve it, not because what you did was okay, but because I deserve peace. I deserve freedom. And holding on to this hate is just another way you control me." She placed her hand on the cold stone. "I forgive you, and I am letting you go." Rita stood, wiping her eyes. And she turned to leave. Something shifted in the air. The mist began to clear. Sunlight broke through the gray clouds, casting warm light across the cemetery. She walked back to her car with a lightness she had not felt in years. That evening, Rita called her mother back. "Mom?" "Rita, hi. I have been thinking about what you said." "Yes? I forgive you, Mom." Her mother gasped, began to cry. "Not because everything is okay now. It is going to take time. We have a lot to work through. But I forgive you."
because I am choosing to heal. Thank you, she sobbed. Thank you, Rita. I will spend the rest of my life trying to... I know. Just let us take it one day at a time. One day at a time. That night, Rita slept without nightmares for the first time in months. Forgiveness does not erase the past. It does not make the pain disappear. It does not mean reconciliation or forgetting. But forgiveness does something more powerful. It breaks the chains that keep us prisoner to what was done to us. Rita learned that forgiving her father and her mother was not about them. It was about reclaiming her own life. It was about choosing freedom over bitterness, peace over pain. And in that choice, she found something she thought was lost forever: herself. Some wounds leave scars, but scars are proof that we survived. And survival, when paired with healing, becomes the most powerful story we can tell.